Welcome to the Homeschool Experience, where home education, culture, and faith find its place. Our mission is to amplify diverse voices in homeschooling and motherhood through insightful chats, cultural perspectives, and faith. My name is Johanny Acevedo, and I am your host, along with
Joanna Taleno.
And Elizabeth Angemotsu.
So today we are doing a listener request. Somebody requested a book episode on our Instagram. So yeah, just a reminder, if you guys want to have like a request on a topic to talk about, please go follow us on the Homeschool Experience on Instagram and tell us what you are interested in listening to. So we are super excited to do this book episode. We were all making all these lists of books, but the list grew and grew and grew. And between the three of us, we do not want to overwhelm you with all these book information. So we're going to break it up into 3 episodes. And today we are going to stick with summer reading programs, what we're planning to read this summer. But do you guys want to share any of the summer reading programs you've read about?
Yeah. I found that it's so incredible, the accessibility that we have to libraries here. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and over there, libraries was not a thing. And like, it's still not a thing. And so moving to the States and finding that you can go to a library with air conditioning and get books and actually take them out and leave the place, take it to your house. This was, yeah. So as when I moved to the States to go to school, I discovered libraries and I enjoyed them. But now, as a mom and a homeschool mom, libraries are just, the place to be in any given moment, especially during Florida heat. You just go to a library. And here they have a lot of programs. Each county, we are in Pasco County. So if you're in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. But there's Pasco County and then Hillsborough County. And you can, depending where you are, you take a card out and they have a summer program where they give you a list of ideas of books for your kids. So they have something here where they give you prices. In the library you get prices too, and probably like in every library. But just go online to your local library and look for summer reading program, and it's really neat because you're not the only one doing it. There's a bunch of kids that are also doing it, and it gives your kids an opportunity to choose something they're interested in reading, and and doing it through the summer. So that's my
Yes, I will give a shout out to our local library, KCLS, King County. We have an
yeah.
amazing library system. I do call myself a professional library person, and I know my number by heart. Like I just go there and I walk in like a pro because like I have all my books already saved. I just like walk in, grab my books, type in my number, and do my whole checkout myself. I feel like a professional. I've been
So
using
cool.
it so hard for so many years. I love our
Hmm.
library.
Yeah,
And they have amazing programs throughout the year. So I get my money's worth out of the library.
absolutely.
That's great. In addition to your local library, there's other organizations and some businesses that have kind of incentives for kids. Um, One of them is Barnes and Noble. They have a summer reading program that has an incentive of a free book. There's Books a Million that has free hat. So some of the incentives, it's like, I don't know, your kids best. Are they going to be incentivized by this? Maybe not. But sometimes I'm surprised at things that my kids, are motivated by. So
Hmm.
yeah, there's Imagination Library, also free books. And then there's some like restaurants that have, like free pizza or a free meal if you participate in their program. So there's
Yeah.
tons. And I feel like, yes, Google's probably one of the best places to search because some of them are local to you. Um,
Right.
and also your library, your local librarian would most likely be able to share with you local businesses, organizations that are participating in that kind of program. And if you feel like I don't want to do that, or um, I don't know where to start, you can also do it yourself, creating a summer reading challenge with your own kids is
Right.
a free option.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for the Barnes and Nobles, I was looking into it today,
Mhm.
and they have a form which is neat because it actually, I think they do it to really see like did this kid actually read the book, and it has a section of for the kid to put the title of the book, and if your child still doesn't write, you can write it for them, and then a section where they can put their favorite part about what they read. And I think that's really neat because it gives them an opportunity to have, we do a lot of Charlotte Mason, and in Charlotte Mason you do a lot of narration, which is telling back what you just learned. And so essentially you will do that with the book, like
Mhm.
tell me your favorite part. You can have them tell you more, but then they write it on that part, and then after 8 books read, they can choose whichever books they want. You bring it to Barnes and Nobles, and they can choose from a list of books to take home with them for free. And so I find it like it's really cool because that book, like, it's always going to be attached to the effort and
Mhm.
all the work that they put in to reading them and then getting this book as a reward.
Did
Yeah.
you guys know I met my husband at Barnes and Noble?
What?
No way.
You did? I had no
Yeah,
idea.
we both.
That's so
Yeah,
cool. What were you reading? Do you
we.
remember?
Oh, we both worked. We were both booksellers. Well, I was a bookseller. He was a
Oh.
manager. But
I can totally see
so
that.
yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, that's where we
So
met and fell in love
cool.
at Barnes and Noble. So there's always a special place in my heart for Barnes and Noble. And then also like our oldest, she was in there all the time. So she felt like that was like another home. She loved going into Barnes and Noble. Yeah. So
Wow,
That
I had
is
no
the
idea.
sweetest
that's my little
story.
Barnes and Noble story. So I also wanted to highlight something that you said, Elizabeth, the Imagination
Mhm.
Library. So that is actually a great program, and I'm sure we've all heard of Dolly Parton,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
I think she's amazing because she has this program, and it's not even just for the summer, but it's for all year long. If you have a child that's under 5,
Mhm.
she will send you a book every month in the mailbox, which is amazing because little kids getting mail is so
It's
fun,
the
isn't it?
best.
Yeah.
And then a book, and it's a good book, and you can actually get sign up for a bilingual English Spanish book as well. So that's really cool.
Nice.
We get those
That's
ones.
amazing.
So I yeah
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't anymore because my son turned 5, and
Okay, does it
I got
say
a letter on there like,
And it's not
congratulations on going to kindergarten. Yeah.
and it's not on every state because I look into it for Florida
Mm.
and it's not here yet.
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
actually send them an email being like, when are you guys gonna be in Florida? And they're like, we're they're
Yeah.
slowly trying to get to every state. But um
True.
so
Yes.
check, and
Okay.
if it's in your state, do
Mhm.
it because I think it's so amazing.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
partner with different affiliates. So when you go to their website, you essentially like link with a local affiliate, and that's how the registration is like processed is through there. So in Seattle, I did mine through Africa Town Land Trust, and they are like the affiliate for the Imagination Library. But yes, I do, Joanna. Like you said, I get books and that are bilingual books in Spanish and in English. I wanted to say like maybe every other one is, and then the other ones are just in English. But it has been a huge help for our youngest one, or for our whole family because we read them. But she gets so excited when it's like her book comes in the mail because it's her book, you know, it has her name on it. So it's an awesome
Yeah.
program.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, I agree.
Love it.
Another summer reading program I wanted to mention is from The Good and the Beautiful. And so they will give you a free book. And you guys, The Good and the Beautiful, they publish their own books. They are so good. Even all the books that are written into the curriculum, I've thoroughly enjoyed all of them. And I actually really appreciate how they're written to read with your child. So, like, one page is for the parent to read, and one page is for the child to read at their
Mhm.
level. And then you're at the higher level. So, and then the stories are quality. So, I jumped on this summer reading program for The Good and the Beautiful, and I got a book for each of my kids, and they come with this like really beautiful packet,
Mm,
and has stickers and bookmarks that come along with it, and then you can track. It's just very well done. You do pay for shipping, but
mm,
it's minimal because I mean you're getting a book out of it, right? So yeah, I love that reading program. And then I just want to say, you know, if you I have been part of like reading programs that so like this High Trek Adventures is like an obstacle course thing that's
mm,
like up high. So we did a reading program for them, and I have two of my kids have a ticket to go
mm.
for free because they read 8 hours, I believe it was, and they just had to
Wow.
keep track of a log. And then at the same time, there was one going for Silverwood. I think that's what it's called. It's like
In
a
Idaho.
water park theme. Yeah, so like you just read and then your child gets a free ticket. So I would say as a homeschool mom, take the initiative and ask, right? Like
Mm.
call somewhere and be like, "Hey, I have a bunch of homeschool families and we want to know if you will offer some kind of incentive for a reading program." You know, the worst that can happen is no.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm.
do a template and like send it off to like all the cool places and see what you get.
It's a great idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there you
She's
have
the
it. You
best.
have a lot of options. Like if anything, if you're like, I don't know what to do with with my kids, because this is not only for homeschoolers at all. Like this is for everyone. And so if your grade third grader teacher said, "Oh, he needs to practice reading this," and he loves, I don't know, whatever he loves or she loves, then this is your opportunity to get that reading in and, look at all the options you have near you to make that reading happen this summer.
Yeah,
But
summer
we
is
wanted
a
to,
great time
yeah,
for reading. Sorry.
yeah, yes. No, especially because I know in Seattle, you want to be outside a lot, right? Because it's summer and it's beautiful and gorgeous and there's mountains. And I'm sad that there's no mountains in Florida. Okay, let's move on. But really if you're in Florida or in any other state that is really really hot during the summer, it's really a great time to read because it's so hot that you're either inside a pool or at your house
Mm-hmm.
with AC. And so yeah, use that time. And if you listen to the past episode, and if you didn't, you should go and listen to it, because we talked about five high five, which is super cool model that Joanna came up with for the summer to have her kids kind of like be motivated through it. And so one of the things there that is recommended is to have them read. If they say I'm bored, they look at the five things, and then one of them is reading. And so if you need like a tool to keep you, kind
Mm-hmm.
of motivated, that is a great tool to kind of use to in turn you motivate your kids, so they can read. And maybe you sit with them and read too. Because I know sometimes when my kid is reading, I'm like, this is the time for me to fold the clothes and do the laundry and do the dishes and maybe take a nap, whatever. But maybe sitting next to them is also motivating. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the books we are reading during this summer.
Gosh. Books this summer. I have a hard time moving away from nonfiction books. They just always draw me in. And I feel like summer should be the time where you can get lost and pick up a good fiction um, novel and just like lose yourself in it. So I'm trying my hardest to include that in my reading. Um, a lot of my reading, honestly, a lot of times is just focused around current events. So certain things will trigger, like, I want to know more about that. And then I pick up a book about
Mm-hmm.
it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently reading 52 Ways to Walk. I think I've mentioned this to Joanna like 52 times. But it's been a really good one for summer because it's a whole book on just the science behind walking. And it's making my mind turn of like, okay, how can I get in more time outside walking? That one is kind of a light read. Another book that I have on my reading list that I haven't started, I took, I don't know how many months, The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. I read more in the springtime. It was my gym book, and I kind of laughed. I played a little bit. It was actually an audiobook, but I played a little bit for a friend. And the author is he's originally he's Ethiopian, but he was raised in India, and so his accent is like um, the accent of the book. I'm trying to remember if he was the actual narrator, but the narrator of the book, his voice is like so mellow. It just is like, who goes to the gym and listens to this? This is crazy.
It was so amazing. And he can do like an Irish accent.
Yeah. Yes. So the Cutting for Stone, Abraham Verghese' previous book, that's on my list to read. Hopefully it won't take me as long as the other one, because the other one, both the books are extremely long. But that is on my list for summertime. I'm still trying to finish Raising a Secure Child. I feel like I like to have a book in different categories if I'm going to listen, especially if I'm listening to different ones. So it's like when I'm not in the mood to listen to something that's going to take me away and I need more concrete reading, I have something that's already started. So I'm midway through that one, and I hope to finish that one in the summertime too. I feel like I always like to read a book, something related to like homeschooling or the children, or, I don't know, something about kids in general. Again, nonfiction. So,
Yes.
yes, that is also on my list. Another book that, gosh, my reading list is long, guys. I don't actually have one for this one, but I'm hoping to get one. Is I like to read finance books too, just books about money, or honestly any area that I feel like isn't like I want to grow in. I try to have a book in that topic happening at the time. So if you guys think of a good finance book that you really love, please send me your recommendations.
I have one,
Oh,
but that will be for the next episode.
okay.
No, I can tell you. I can tell you now, though. No, I've mentioned it before. I will make you, or sorry, I guess it's down here somewhere.
I Will Teach You to Be Rich
I Will Teach You to Be
by
Rich. Yeah,
Ramit
by
Sethi.
Ramit
Yes,
Sethi.
I read it.
I love it.
And I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. I listened to it in audiobook as well.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast, so he's just like very natural talking.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds he's also a millennial, so he gets me.
Yep. I feel like that's one thing that I've had to give into. It's doing reading books through audio, because I am a very visual learner. Like I have to highlight, to put notes, to put a post-it. Like that's how it gets in my body. But as a mom and a homeschool mom of three, it's really not realistic. That's why most of the books before I kind of, and Elizabeth inspired me because I'm like, you read that and that and that, and it's like, and she's like, yeah, most of them are. I just listen to them, either when I'm cooking and I have a moment, or in the gym, So I'm like, okay, I just need to do it, and that's how I've been able to finish books and actually, and what I do is that if there's something that I'm like, oh, I love this, I just pull up a note on my phone and just like make a note right there, to just kind of do that kinetic exercise of writing it. And that's, it gets in my body, something that I really don't want to forget. But yeah, if you haven't jumped in the wagon of Audible, do it. And the cool thing that if you have Amazon account, you get so many credits that like most of the books that I read have been using credits. Like it's been free, which is a super cool perk.
Or the
So,
library, if you want to go the free route.
or the library.
The library, what's it called? I see.
Libby.
Hoopla. Here is Hoopla.
No,
Hoopla.
what
Is
is
it
it called?
Hoopla? No.
I don't.
It's not Libby.
Libby, thank you.
Libby.
Overdrive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I'm sure it's different depending on what library system you're part of, but yes, that's a lifesaver.
We have Hoopla too here. Actually.
You do. I think
Yeah.
Hoopla is more like electronic
Videos.
books, videos and electronic books. But Libby, yes.
Old's maxed out on Libby.
I've never used Libby, so is Libby like what? Tell me more. And for listeners that don't know what that is.
It is just free through your library app. It's an app.
Oh, okay.
you just use it just like your regular library. So you go on there, you can have 25 holds at a time, and
Wow.
plenty checked out as well. You can open up audiobooks and like digital books, and you can read those digital books on the Libby app itself, or you can transfer it to your Kindle.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Elizabeth, I'm curious, are your kids reading something right now, or do they have any
Um,
summer
yeah,
lists?
I feel like I do a read aloud with them every day. So I normally read a book to them, um, and then they do independent reading time. So I, to be honest, I feel like they prefer just to sit down and listen to whatever book is being read.
Hmm.
So when it comes time for them to like do independent reading, they're like, I don't know, they'll do it, but I feel like there's nothing quite as enjoyable to me. I'm like as reading to
Mm.
them, and I think they feel the same.
Mm.
So
Yes.
as far as like reading list for them for the summer, no, I have no expectations of them to pick anything or have to go through something. I probably should introduce them to some things like
Mm.
just, hey, these are options, but I've been pretty free with them. Like, let's go to the library, look around, see what might look interesting to you for their
Hmm.
independent reading time. And then they just kind of pick whatever they are in the moment. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like books on Pokemon. Other times
Yeah.
it's like, books on certain animals. I don't know. I
Yeah.
they have honestly yet to get into a series and just like never want to leave it. Um,
Mm.
so that's kind of where we're
Yeah.
at with the kids.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, when we said, I'm thinking about when we say a baby is fed, doesn't matter how it's fed, right? Like, it's the same thing. If they're like, for me, and I know there's a lot of controversy about this, like what kids read, but for me, sometimes it's like, unless it's something like garbage, right? Like it's really not good book at all. But there are words in a Pokemon book, right? Like they are reading, they are seeing punctuation. There's a story, right? And of course, I want them to maybe want to read Shakespeare or Anne Frank or whatever, right? But they are developing as readers too, and I think that's something to remember, because I think there's a pressure to like, you know, which books do I choose for my kids? And well, I want them to have good literature and like read what we call, Charlotte Mason calls living books, and books that are beautiful and all of that. There's also Pokemon and Spider-Man. And I mean, I can tell you a whole list of, if I ask my child, like my oldest, what's your favorite book? He's probably going to say, a Star Wars or something. So I think just honoring that too, that they are reading.
Mhm.
And even if it's the newspaper, although we don't have newspapers anymore, but whatever it is, right? Like just really celebrating that as well.
Yeah, there's a balance between finding the good literature, but also allowing them a little bit of
Yes.
freedom, so that we're after children who love to read,
Yeah.
right? So we don't want
Yes.
to kill that. We don't want it to die down.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest was really into like graphic novels when she was first starting out. They're like easy to digest kind of books. But they have a lot of good graphic novels these days.
Mhm.
They
Some really
really
good
do.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
have like classics converted into graphic novels.
Yes.
So she's had a lot of that, but
I was sharing with Elizabeth and Joanna when we were talking about this episode that I didn't grow up reading a lot. I remember a lot of books in my house, and my dad loves to read. My mom doesn't, but they were well, my mom does too. I think just different books. But I think in school something happened where I didn't like. There was a disconnection
Mhm.
for me to really like love to read. And I think culturally there's not a lot of intentionality put into motivating kids to read in our culture. And so I now, as the mom, I am trying to change that. And I was actually looking at this research that they were saying that, for kids, having books in your home, like having a library and books available all the time for kids to just pick and read, it's there's a correlation between that and future success in every like in academics and work and all of that. And they were saying like they put a number of like 80 books, like at least 80 books at all times just available. And I'm like, wow, like that's crazy, and yeah, all of that to say, my summer reading list. So I'm reading. I have a friend. Shout out to Darlene. She posted this book on her Instagram account, and I was like, I want to. It's historical nonfiction, and it really caught my attention because it's about the story of this mom through the Caribbean to rescue her child, and it's called "Rivers Sing Me Home" by Eleanor Shearer. Shearer. I don't know how you say it, but I have that on my list, and she got out the library. So I'm like, when you return it, it's my turn. So that's what I'm hoping to read. And then there's a book called Mother Culture by Karen Andriola, which is like Charlotte Mason had this concept of the mother culture, which essentially means that you also read books and you also educate yourself and you also take time to paint and sculpt and bake and whatever it is that makes you grow and feel alive and just grow alongside your children. You do that. That's your mother culture. And I'm super excited to read it because I don't need or any of that, but I'm excited to find out what is it that I am passionate about that will help me grow with my kids as they grow in their own culture. And then the other one is called The Well Lived Life: 103-Year-Old Doctor's Six Secrets to Health and Happiness at Every Age. And I cannot remember the name of the doctor, her name, the author. Um, but essentially, she's like considered the mother of holistic living. And she wrote this book with Dr. Mark. His last name is escaping me right now. He's very, very famous in the holistic world too. But I'm excited to read that and kind of, find out how she lived to 100 years old. And then for my kids, my oldest really loves series. Like he read, I don't, and this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know where he got this love for reading from, but I'm so glad he loves reading. He read Magic Tree House, so the collection of Magic Tree House books, and then Dragon Masters. He's read them all, and now he wants to read the Boxcar Children, and then which I'm like, I don't know, I need to look into it, but I feel like that I've heard a lot of kids love that series, and then the Secrets of the Hidden Scrolls. And we are reading a poem book. We try to do poetry once a week, but there's a book called The Surrender Tree by Margarita Engel, and it's a book about Cuban liberation. And so I'm really excited to read those poems to them. And that's where, whatever else when we go to the library and they want to get, but those are things that I really want them to to read, or me to read to them, the poems especially. And then we're finishing a book called The One and Only Ivan. We're almost at the end of it, and it's such a sweet book. If you have the opportunity to read it, it's super sweet. It's about a gorilla and just his life is so sweet. So that's me. Joanna, what about you?
That's so funny that you said The One and Only Ivan, because that's one that I have on my daughter's summer reading list.
Yes.
So awesome. And I think there's a second one to it too as well.
Yes, that is.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. It's about I think the
So
elephant. Yeah.
okay. Awesome. Good to hear that it's a good one. You like
It
it.
is.
I love stories about animals.
Yes.
There's a lot out there.
Yes. And there's a lot of teachings in that book about humanity and just I cried. My son is like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I feel like crying too." I'm like, "Yeah, it's very emotional. Like, it's a very emotional book." So I think you guys will enjoy it.
So for us, I have liked books for a very long time. Like I remember being in early elementary, being like, what's your favorite subject? And I'll be like, reading. So yeah, but then, throughout school education, the reading is mostly done for school. So like I kind of lost a lot of, things I wanted to read.
Yeah.
There was many years there. And then I did, like I told you, as I was a bookseller. So I knew about a bunch of books and I loved knowing what was popular at the time. It was so fun for someone to come up to the desk and be like, I was looking for Oprah's book. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Follow me. And I would like walk to it was so much fun. But honestly, I wasn't reading the books. I just knew about them. And as I became the homeschool mom, and that I also was reading a lot of nonfiction books about parenting or, productivity or money or, a lot of nonfiction books. And I would go through it slowly. But this year I decided I would just start reading some adult fiction and just trying things out. And I have had so much fun. I've become such a voracious reader. It's like ridiculous. A little embarrassing about how much, and it's all on audiobooks. So yes, my house gets clean. If like the house is a mess and, I know it's like a cleaning day, like yesterday was a cleaning day, right? Saturdays we work on the house and stuff sometimes. Like a 6-hour book, I can read in a day. Easy. Because I do it a little bit fast and I can read an entire book in one cleaning day.
That's amazing.
So I've been reading a ridiculous amount of books because there's so many out there. Making all this list, I'm like looking at all the books and seeing how much I've read and how much we've read as a homeschool family over the years, but then also seeing all these other ones that I haven't even heard about. I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt like I read a lot, but there's so many more out there to read. And I was telling you ladies the other day about how just, fiction, they're like people's stories. And I think that our stories connect us with each other. And even though it's not like a nonfiction book where you're learning or you can track what you've learned from it.
Yes.
You do, I think, learn a lot from hearing somebody else's stories or some kind of tough situation that they have been through, even like memoirs and biographies and autobiographies. Those are always great. And audiobooks, you're lucky sometimes for it to be narrated by the author themselves, which I think is great, or some actor. Cause like I love Meryl Streep reading to me. I don't know what it is. She's my favorite narrator. The book is like mediocre, but I love it because she read it to me. I've read two of her books, I've listened to, but that's also reading. I've ingested in some way 2 books that she read to me, and they were good, but like she just made them amazing.
Oh man,
I know exactly. I think it was like Tom Lake, and like a romance book, like Heartburn. I read those 2 from her, and I was like, oh yeah, love it.
It's true.
So now I'm kind of chasing that. Yeah.
No, it goes both ways, because I feel like when there's a good book with a bad narrator, it's like, forget it.
No
I wanted to read it. It was probably good, but you wrecked it, So
yes,
I agree.
Yes.
A good narrator with a mediocre book can go very far.
Yeah. I've kind of, after so many years of reading to my kids, I'm like, I'm a good reader now. Like I used to not be a great out loud reader, but now I'm like, I feel like a confident out loud reader.
And you have a great voice. Like I feel like I could listen to you talk all day long because you have a soothing voice. For people that don't know, Joanna was my doula for my first child. And one of the things that actually, this is hilarious, but one of the things that actually kind of like made me be like, I want her in my birth was the way she talks. Like when I met her for the first time, like she has the most soothing voice ever. So that's what I need. I need soothing during birth. And I was sold. I'm like, yep, you'll be my doula. So I will definitely listen to an audiobook from you because you have that voice.
That is so sweet. That's so sweet of you to say. You guys give me confidence to think maybe that I could try that out as a job one day. That now that I have the setup.
Yes.
There's some weird books out there though. I have a actress friend. She narrated a book and she was talking about like I don't know, love scenes between. No, never mind. I'm not even gonna go.
What about what you're reading for the summer?
Yeah, about that. So yeah, like I am currently reading a variety of books. I am reading one for our church small group. So we've been reading this one for a little bit. It's great because there's small chapters, and it's called The Power of a Praying Parent by Stormy Oma.
It's so good.
Her last name.
That book is so good.
Or Martian or something like that.
I'm reading that book too with my group. That's so funny. That's the same. I am in a prayer group, and it's just like that book is amazing. So
yeah. I'm really enjoying it. She has different versions as well, but it's great reminders to pray about all aspects of your child's life as they're growing. So we're reading that one as in a small group. My fun fiction one right now, it's called The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I've just been seeing it pop up everywhere on all the people that I look to for book recommendations. It's, that one pops up a lot, and it is, it's fun. It's fun. It's a series, so I'll probably just read all of them. Okay, so then I'm also reading another fiction. It's called The Dutch House, and that's by Anne Patchett, and it's read by Tom Hanks. So that's fun. Yeah. Like I'm chasing the good narrator. I'm like, Tom Hanks? Okay. That should be good. And then Anne Patchett, of course, she's solid author. And then I am reading some with my kids as well. I am reading, it's called The Switch with my 9-year-old. It's the third book in a series. They're good. So the first one's called Savvy, the second one's called Scumble, and now this one's called Switch. And it's, I don't know, I like it. She likes it a lot too, so
let's go.
We're reading that one. That one's by Ingrid Law. And then with her also, I also count the books that are written into her curriculum. So we're also reading The Journey of 5. Because it's all about now that I've kind of gamified reading, I can update my Goodreads and be like, I read that book and that one. So I'm including the curriculum ones for sure. And then I'm also reading Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen with my 15-year-old.
And when you say I'm reading, you read it to her? It's like a read aloud? Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I know it sounds silly, but I try to every other night, go and I read them a bedtime story.
Yes. Yes.
Even my 15-year-old, because she's like, you just have to find points of connection with your kids, right?
Absolutely.
And that's, and there's some times where it's like the family read aloud. And, but I want to get a little more, mature for my 15-year-old, right? But I don't want the other ones to have to listen to something that they're not ready for.
Yeah.
And so they each get their own books. And for my son, it's just a bunch of picture books. We're not really into chapter books quite yet. Although we have before, but mostly picture books.
Yeah.
So those are the books that I'm currently reading.
Nice.
And just some, like I already told you, I have like maxed out on holds. So, and I go through them really quick. So some of them that are on my list, I have a list of 25 or more. But I'll read to you a few that I am excited about. So I'm excited about one called First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. I read a Colleen Hoover book recently. She's making that the movies that's coming out. It's called like It Ends With Us. So I read those and they were good. So I want to read one called Verity.
Wow.
I want to read The Anxious Generation.
Yes, I have that
you
one
seen
on
that
my
one?
list. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's Jonathan Haidt.
Yep.
I don't know how to say that.
Yeah. I have it here too.
Anina Del Monte Laughs Last. Oh man, I don't know how to say her last name or her first name.
What is that?
It's like I can tell it's maybe like a Mexican indigenous name.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
how
I
to
see.
say it.
Okay.
But her last name is Gonzalez.
Okay.
Yes. Redwood Court by Delana R.A. Demarion and Braiding Sweetgrass. That's one that I want to read with my oldest.
Okay.
So, that's by Robin Wall Kimmerer or Kimmer. I'm sorry.
I mean, some last names are hard to say.
Yeah, well.
You have a lot of books. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
No wonder your Libby is maxed out.
Yeah.
And I can tell, like,
That's
it makes
maxed
sense
out, yeah.
that you worked at Barnes and Nobles. And it's so funny how for some people it's so easy it's part of who you are, right? Reading. Like I see it in my oldest. I see that reading is just, he picks a book and he sits down and he's a very active boy, but when he reads, he gets in it. Like he just zones in, and he could be reading for an hour and just finishes a book, like there. And I'm like, where is this coming from? So I, like you saying all these books, I'm like, it sounds that it comes so natural, because for me, I have to make I know the value in reading, and I've had to make it a habit for myself to like enjoy reading, because 3-4 years ago, I mean, I had like 4 books that were started and never finished. But recently, the past few years, I've been like, no, especially since I started doing Audible and audiobooks. So yeah, that's
I was
so
thinking,
cool.
Johannes, about what you were saying, like growing up in Puerto Rico and not feeling like libraries, you felt like we're not, there was not a big focus on like going to the library. But it was making me, this is more of a question, just thinking of like, for cultures where written language was not, a priority, like storytelling was oral. I think that is not uncommon, especially with cultures where you share orally about like what has happened in the past, or even fictional stories, or
100%.
other things, that it makes, I think it's not a negative thing, it's just, but it can be a jump of like, okay, how do I go from there to then like, maybe introducing books to my kids or to yourself, you're like, okay, I can get into this if it wasn't something that you were raised around.
Right. Yeah.
I think one of the things that has, I think that's where representation in books is so helpful. I remember reading, the Puerto Rican author Elizabeth Acevedo, actually.
Yes.
I loved the book, and I felt I think it was A Fire on High, but I loved the book because I feel like I just like fell into her culture. Like there were little nuances, and obviously it's different for each person, but like nuances of the book that helped me appreciate the culture. And I think sometimes when you can see yourself in a book, maybe even culturally, if you haven't been in in the past, it's like that can be huge to feel like, there's libraries full of stories from people from across the world, but what about my cultural stories?
Absolutely.
I feel like, I am forever trying to find more books as far as like Polynesian authors. Reads with Rosa, who's a podcaster also and has an Instagram account. I look on hers a lot to look for like more recent Polynesian writers or Pacific Island writers. Because a lot of them are not, some of the books are overseas. So even that barrier of like, books that I'm getting access to because they're in the US, like New Zealand or Australia or from the islands directly. Those are to go back to books that I want, to introduce to my kids. Some of those are like some of those authors are ones that I'm like, yes, I want them to see themselves,
Yes,
as
it's so
writers, and like
powerful.
that they
Yeah.
are represented in books that are at the library. That it's not just like an oral
Yeah.
story, but they can like pick it up
Yeah.
and read it. Like, hey,
And
it's a you
see
too.
themselves. Yes, it's huge. I think when that happens, it just creates a connection that is unbreakable over time. You see in yourself like, oh, this person looks like me, or even like mentioning something that is about your culture
Mm-hmm.
feels so good. And I think, with what you're saying, in our culture in Puerto Rico, I think the priority was survival for a lot of years. Like my great grandma didn't know how to read
Mm-hmm.
at all. My grandma barely knew how to read, finished only fourth grade, and so there were so many things to attend to. You didn't finish school. And thinking about the privilege that we have now, that we can just let our kids read. Like I think about my great grandma and I'm like, she could not afford to just sit down and read a book.
Mm-hmm.
She had to work, as a child for her family and with her family. And so, like honoring, the struggle that our children have in this generation as well. We're not dismissing those, but also recognizing like how cool and how amazing that they can just get into a book. And more than that, for you, like what you're saying, being intentional about bringing the culture that is within them through a book. It's so cool. Like we learn about, I don't know, our indigenous people. And we went to Puerto Rico recently, and for us to visit places there that we read in a book before going, it's just huge. It's the coolest thing. So, I mean, I feel like we could be talking about books for days, and that's why we're bringing you 2 more episodes about books so we can fit all of it in there, because one episode is not enough. So we're bringing you guys books that are more for the lower grades, lower elementary, upper elementary, and then middle school, high school, and adults. So you can have some ideas, because I know there's so many books out there, and choosing what to read can be overwhelming. So we want to help you guys kind of narrowing it down. So
Thank you so much for being here with us on our first book episode that we have for you. We're super excited to bring the other ones that Johanny said. So just if you guys want to request anything or start a conversation on our Instagram, we would love to hear from you. If you could just follow us on the Homeschool Podcast on Instagram, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
see you next week. Bye.
Bye.